Hello and welcome to Fractured Moon. I'm your DM George, and I'm here to give you a rundown on both the setting and the campaign so far. There's a lot to go through as these characters have started from level 1 and have made it all the way to nearly level 7 so far, so if you need, grab something to drink, something to eat, in a comfy sitting position, and we'll start right off. First, the setting. Fractured Moon is a planet that used to have a high level of technology and science. However, 178 years before the current game started, a giant comet made of wyrdstone smashed into the planet and caused a global event that killed off 19 out of every 20 people, as well as made it impossible for most magics to be cast. Anything above 3rd level is impossible to cast in this world. At least, that's what's believed. The setting. The 3 characters we start with, Cassie, a ranger, Adria, a druid, and Lilia, a bard, are all in Ollie, a small but prosperous town on the northern continent. Now, the setting itself is Pie Week, a week-long festival celebrating the harvest. People from all over gather in Ollie just for this celebration. Now, Cassie and Adria have never been to the town before. Lilia has, though. She's been going for the last 6 years, busking as a musician, and has gotten to know a lot of the people there. Now, however, during this week, something strange happens. It starts off with a few people dying after tasting some of the wine. Not only dying, but they came back, mutated with multiple mouths, all of them shooting either beams of energy or fire out of them. Reacting quickly, the players all decide to jump in and save people by taking down these unfortunate souls. Seeing their quick heroism and bravery, Captain Norris of the City Guard has deputized all of them to come in and help save the town during Pie Week. The entire time, the bard, Lilia, is flirting with him. She's of course known him for the past 6 years, and he just brushes it off as she's been doing this for 6 years. So after some quick investigation, they find the crafter who's been placing some of this wyrdstone, which is magical energy made solid. He's been placing some of it inside of the casks of wine in infernal sigils. They also found he had an accomplice, a wizard known only as Bart. Now this elven wizard told him he could make him rich beyond his wildest dreams. Well, they went to go and collect some information from the crafter's house, but wound up and while they were there, they had one of the goblets of wine that was poisoned. They know this because they had taken it from someone who had just passed. Now, instead of testing it with some of the wyrdstone they'd collected earlier, Cassie decided to drink it, nearly killing herself. After recovering from that, they decide to steal the ledgers, showing the crafter's guilt and Bart's hand in all of this. But as they were leaving, they ran across Bart and wound up getting into a massive fight with him. Now, he was a very powerful wizard, although he could only use some of his simplest spells, and in the end, he was forced to retreat and he recalled away. This was their first interaction with above 3rd level magic. After the crafter had been arrested, they had their deputization taken away as they were no longer needed, and Lilia, yes, succeeded in seducing Norris. It took 3 sessions for her to do that, but she did it. Now, Cassie had been heading to Carrick City, a large city to the north and east of Ollie, by train, because she had been looking for her father and she had received a letter from him. Now, this letter was 10 years old, but it did have an address. So, deciding that they had nothing better to do after Pie Week than to go on some more adventures, Adria and Lilia decided to join up with her and head over to Carrick City. Once they got to this enormous city, they realized that the house that her father had once been in was an adventurers guild. So, going up to the proprietor, they asked if he knew who had been the previous owner. While it had been a closed sale, there's potential that he may be able to find it out. It would take some time, though. So they decided to go on a few quests in the meantime. Their first quest took them to a small little mining community called Glit, Glit. There was a death cult that had infested the mines that was their only source of wealth. And the one different thing about this death cult than most was that all the members had been dead for about 700 years or so. The skeletons were going through their regular rituals as they had been for the past 700 years, but once the miners had broken in, they started becoming aggressive and attacking the miners. When the party got there, they were warned that the skeletons that were the death cults, when they would die, they would just slowly reform back up, so within a few hours, that skeleton was back together. So as they went down, kicking butt and tearing skeletons apart, Cassie decided to take a skull from each of the skeletons and hide it away so the skeletons couldn't come back together. Smart move, as much as they thought. Once they had destroyed all 7 and brought the heads together, all 7 of the heads, skulls, became one and turned into a sentient skull with warpstone eyes and warpstone infernal sigils all over its skull. It was a very friendly sort of death cultist too. Very happy. If you want to think about it, think of Mort from Planescape. That's kind of who this character was based on. He had no recollection of his past life or the death cult, and decided that he wanted to join the rest of the party because, well, he had nothing better to do. They started calling him Al. So, heading back to Carrick City, they decided to look into not only more jobs, but a local wizard. Maybe a local wizard could tell them a little bit more about this floating skull with a personality who kind of wouldn't leave them alone. They eventually found one, a wood elf named Khalifi. She offered to look into Al for free if they would test some potions out for her. Well, they agreed to head out to go rescue a caravan, and as they're doing that, get severely injured. At least Lilia does. And while she's unconscious, they force down a potion called Restoration and just pour it down her throat. While this does bring her back to consciousness, it also reduces her age by 5 years, bringing her from 21 to 16 years old. So now, Lilia is really upset at Bart the wizard and Khalifi the wizard. She's not having a good run with wizards. So they head back and try to find Khalifi. They find a sign saying, "Gone, I'll be back in a few days." Now this was they asked some of her neighbors, and this was very common for Khalifi to just disappear for a few days, come back, sometimes even a few weeks at a time. So they decide there's nothing more that they can do, they can find chasing her, that they'll look into how the search for Cassie's father is going. Now there was some good news. A strongbox in a bank was found in her father's name. Now, as kin, it had been passed on to her just because she was the only one there. So they looked into it, and what they really found was a journal of his. However, it was written in a script that they couldn't read. A few days later, after just trying to do a few more jobs and figure out where to go next, the skull, Al, floated back into their life. He told them that Khalifi was fairly boring, and She was just headed south, wasn't even investigating him, so he decided to come back because she was boring. He took one look at the book and noted that it was an ancient text that they were reading, or at least an ancient script that it was written in, and that it was complete gibberish. That's because it was a cipher. And the cipher was written by a very, very prolific writer. And to make matters worse, not only had he written 12 books, he had written multiple versions of each book, and they didn't know which book was it. So they decided to go through all the libraries in the city and start researching. Perhaps one of the texts that they have could be the correct one. Well, a month into this endeavor, Lilia starts getting sick every day. Quickly, they take her to a local cleric who happens to be the bartender at the Adventurers Guild, at least the night bartender is the vampire cleric they go to, and he confirms that her tryst with the good captain from Ollie got her pregnant. So now she's pregnant, 16, and really cheesed off at 2 wizards. Everything's going her way. Continuing on, they decide, okay, they really need to see Khalifi again, so they decide to break in. Now, they do have a spell that will let them unlock a door and walk in the front, and they can go at any time of the day they want. They decide on this plan. Then they decide it's way too obvious and try to sneak in through other guards. All of them getting caught in the process. Cassie and Adria are trying to make a distraction by claiming that Cassie's pregnant and therefore draw the guard away. When the guard realizes that no, neither of them is actually pregnant, she arrests both of them for, well, just shenanigans and just tosses them into the drunk tank. Lilia actually manages to get into Khalifi's shop, take some of her personal effects, and then gets stuck. Al is with her, and with his incredible intelligence of 8, decides the best thing to do is to go get help. And by help, it's the guard who's right outside. So, all of them are arrested and sitting in jail. Norris, Deus Ex Machina, aka Captain Norris, comes the next day and gets them out of jail, as well as lets them look at all the stuff that had been stolen, because he's trying to figure out why they were all trying to steal from this woman. Now, wonder of wonders, Lilia opens up a locket that she found. On one side is Bart, on the other side is a very strange symbol. At the symbol, Cassie turns pale white. Now, unbeknownst to the other two, Cassie has known to the other two is that she has a fiancé. Unbeknownst to them is that whenever they send letters to each other, they use a special symbol to show that it is them. This symbol is almost exactly the same as the one that's in the locket. So after they calm Cassie down enough to talk, she divulges this to the party, and they realize that whoever Bart and Khalifi are, they have some connection to Cassie's fiancé. So rather than having to break them out of jail every single time, Norris writes up a writ for all the lands around Carrick City that does include Ollie, that Cassie, Lilia, and Adria are deputized to chase after any information regarding Bart, Khalifi, or that symbol. Now, once they're out of jail, they learn that Khalifi was headed south towards at least Crossroads. The Crossroads is in the middle of the long train tracks going down to the city of Mirrors, as well as route going north-south, and Route 66 heading east-west all the way to the Eastern Lands. So they decide to head down towards Crossroads. While there, they come across a very strange group of robed figures, all of whom have a very pungent smell. But when Lilia asks about the symbol, they tell her to back off. Suspicious of this, they follow those figures and figure that they're stealing what are they're smuggling a huge amount of corpse flowers. So they go to the local university outpost that's stationed in Crossroads and ask about that symbol. Well, they don't really know much about that symbol there, other than they did find a few scraps of paper with it in the ruined city of Viger to the west, near a large tower that used to be a library. So they decide they might as well head off there. However, before they head off there, as they wake up in the morning, they see a note. It's from Cassie. Cassie has written that just the stress of travel is so much she doesn't want to believe that her fiance is into anything bad, and the fact that her father's gone. If he really wanted to be around, he would have stayed around. And since her home is nearby, she's left and headed home. As they head towards Viger, they come across a very strange person who's just popped into this world. Zilver, a drow. Now, this drow has been running from her family for a while and has finally popped up out of the Underdark, and behind her, the door to the Underdark closes. Now, with really nothing and nowhere to go, she tags along with the group because she has no clue where she's going, and none of them seem to really know what a drow is. Her and Al immediately fall to bickering like two little children, but it's a friendly sort of bickering. When they finally make their way to Viger, where it connects with Route 66, there's a small little barter town there, and as they're trying to leave the barter town, they're stopped by a dwarven seer. She tells them to follow her into a special grove, and one at a time takes them underneath this willow. Now, as she takes Al under the willow, he falls and clatters to the ground, as if all the strings had been cut on a marionette. It's an anti-magic field around that area. When she brings Al back out, he has this very far away and worried look, as worried as a skull without any flesh or movable parts other than a jaw has. Next, she brings Zilver in. Now, a secret Zilver had that no one had known was that every time she spoke, she used minor illusion to create the voice. It was a very feminine voice. However, when she went into the grove, she could no longer cast that, and when she had to speak, her voice was much more masculine. One by one, each of the characters was brought in, and each one told that something that they searched was within the City of Mirrors. That Adria was looking for no one, that Zilvra was looking for the half, and that Lilia was looking for the whole. Well, they decide to still head down to the ruined tower, which turns out to be a very large brick library. On their way there, they hear a strange noise and run for cover. As the noise gets closer, they're able to tell that it's individual instruments. Moving by them is a very large marching band in the colors of red and white. They decide not to attack them, which was fairly smart. One of the few things they've done that's actually smart. Continuing on, they get to the tower and find that, yes, it is infested with the creatures who they had met on their journey. Now, they only make it through a few levels of here before Lilia, who is pregnant, if you'll remember, gets seriously hurt, deciding that they can always come back here when Lilia is not as vulnerable, and knowing that what they truly seek is down in the City of Mirrors, they decide to leave and continue on their way to the City of Mirrors. Once they get there, they're confronted with customs, as it's actually a different nation that they're in. Lilia decides to pull out the writ with the symbol on it the moment she realizes that one of the groups that they could sign up with has that same symbol. She goes over to them, holds out the writ, and says, "We're investigating this symbol." This didn't go well. No one died, no one even started to fight, but it took Al, the dumbest of the characters, to tell her that maybe waving around a writ that says we're here to investigate your leaders from another country is not a bright idea. However, they do finally make it into the city and decide to start investigating. Now they're looking for Khalifi, as they figured she's probably come all the way here if she kept going south. It's the logical conclusion. And once again, it's going to take a month because of bureaucracy to figure all this information out if she is actually there. So they decide during that time to start looking for the Noah. Well, Zilver's asking about the half. She gets led to a halfling store for halfling clothes and is told that the half, they don't know where it is, but there's someone, if they're asking about that, they may know where they are. It's to the north in some of the unclaimed territory in the old City of Mirrors. So, heading out, the party delves their way into the jungle, and they finally come across this town of outcasts. The leader introduces herself as Nemo. They don't get it. So Nemo tells them that in order to find the answer that they're looking for, they should go to a white tomb a few hours away, as the answer of what Adria is looking for will be there. Heading to the tomb, they eventually find, after defeating their enemies, that there's a medallion with warpstone on it that's hanging around the trunk of the tree, and that it's causing that tree to mutate and die. They take that amulet to come with them and head back to where they were staying in the City of Mirrors. It's just about here that they find where Khalifi was staying for a little while. Heading over there, they notice that the room, it's been paid up for a full month, but no one's been in there for at least 2-3 weeks. When they go in, they smell this overwhelming stench of death. Continuing to go in, they see that there's a tub filled with just organic matter. Being the brilliant woman she is, Lilia decides to reach straight in and grab a magical device that she senses. This magical device, surprisingly, is actually beneficial. It gives her some additional wisdom, as well as now ages her up to 22 and pregnant. Yeah, a lot of temporal stuff is happening with Lilia. Still very cheesed off, they continue looking for signs of Khalifi when they're told that the half that they're looking for may be in a different area of the city. Heading over there, they realize that this part of the city is run by vampires. Very benevolent vampires who are actually looking for a way to cure the vampirism because it does very wonky things to both the people who have to live under it and the people who are cursed by it. While there, they find one of the halves who tells them that her and her friend have actually discovered a red that will allow them to destroy the warp stone that's infesting the planet now. But her friend was lost in the northern part of the city trying to test this. So the adventurers decide they're going to go and help her. Going over there, they find that the other half has been attacked and is severely wounded. Once they rescue her from a giant orchard jelly, no, it was a black pudding they rescued her from. The orchard jellies were earlier. They realized that she was actually a he because of a certain belt that he had, and no longer had any need for. Zilbra immediately snatched this up, put it on, and filled out to create a more feminine look. That's when the shoe fell that Zilbra was a transgender character who was born male but is now female and now is physically female as well. So they decide that they will continue to help out the daughter of the ruler who they were helping with finding the other half, because, well, they may still have more information as to where the hole is. There's a party that's coming up, and they all decide, and it's decided that they will be bodyguards during this. During the ball, a few people, one person does try to kill the vampire who they're protecting, typical. But then Lilia looks all the way across and sees a very familiar elven figure, Kalifi. It seems she's enchanted a whole group of people at the party to rush them and try to kill them. During this large ensuing brawl, Kalifi is finally brought down and interrogated. During this interrogation, she reveals that Bart's plan, even if she's killed and all of her research is lost, will still be able to go off. And that they have very little time in which to save themselves. So, when they finally get back from the party, the two halves decide to give them all the information that they need for the ritual. One of the people who they brought back with them after the fight was the heir to the entire city of mirrors. She happened to be the rest of the pieces, and together they all made a whole. She informed them that the symbol was from a Far East nation. It was a Black Ops unit that had gone rogue during a war just under 200 years ago, and that a wizard named Bartzarius had called down a massive comet to defeat their enemies. This is most likely the same Bart and Bartzarius and comet that they're all now very familiar with. Well, the two halves tell them that the ritual needs a few things for them to be able to cast it, as well as they have to get to the largest concentration of Wordstone. They need teeth from 3 different dragons. They need a flute made out of the bone of a fae or fiend that has to be played throughout the entire time of casting, which is 10 hours. And then they also need lightning that is frozen inside of a creature of chaos at the moment of death. That they all look at each other wondering why they need such crazy things for it, but it was much easier for me that way. Well, they already had black dragon teeth. Those were given to them. Al, of course, took a few and put them in his mouth because now he's a skull with dragon's fangs. Very intimidating. So they decide to head north as about 3.5 months have passed since the time Lilia got pregnant. However, the clerics tell her she's about 8 months pregnant. This has to do with all the temporal magic that was cast around her. Heading north, just as they get to Ollie, Lilia's mother calls out to her in her angriest voice. And by the best luck of dice rolls, which I had hoped for, that also sets her off into labor, giving birth to probably the most adorable demon baby ever. So Norris, I forgot to say, is a tiefling. Lilia is a half-elf, and mixed with all the wordstone and crazy magic that had happened to them, their daughter, Ianthe, is a tiefling with goat legs, smooth but without all the fur, goat horns, purple skin, a long lizard-like tail, 4 clawed arms, and 2 bat wings. She's going to be a terror when she grows up. So we then have an in-game 6-month break. During this, Adria discovers there's not just one color of wordstone, there are at least 2. She finds some blue wordstone which appears to be a lot more stable. Zilvra decides to go traveling and learn more about this world she ended up in. She heads east and crosses over a large desert, gets some books, and on the way back, rather than waiting for another caravan, decides to try and go it alone across the desert. She is caught by some bandits and killed. Now, rather than just dying, a certain god, which will not be named because I know Zilvra's player will try and watch this and learn that information, a god commands a druid named Suratobi to bring her back, using his power. So after a few days of casting the reincarnate spell, Zilvra comes back as a kitsune, a fox person. She heads back to Ollie, where the rest of her party is, and the rest of her party thinks she's a werefox. A harmless werefox, but a werefox nonetheless. So at this point, they decide for a spring festival to head down to Lilia's hometown of Esterfey and just spend a week there celebrating and relaxing. They head down, and as they get there, the fish start dying. Well, this is because they believe that a green dragon has infested the area. This is corroborated by a lot of green kobolds in the area. Well, most of the people in the village don't believe her, well, don't believe any of them. So after they kill the kobolds and figure out where the dragon is hiding, they go over to slay the dragon and bring its body back. Well, they head over, kill all the kobold attendants, and Lilia finally gets to use her ring of water walking, walks out onto the water, and basically slaps the dragon across the face, cursing it. The ensuing fight nearly kills her. Team Genius, people. They kill the dragon, drag its corpse on shore, then Lilia and Adria decide to ride back to town without any proof that the dragon is dead, mind you, and tell them that they killed the dragon. No one really believes them, so they hire some people from the town because they've got paying work, head back, pick up the dragon's corpse, bring it all the way back to town, after which the leader of the people who did not believe Adria dies in an apoplectic fit. While this is going on, a rider from the town of Mudkin Glade comes up. Both of his horses are lathered in sweat and exhausted. Asking, hold on. He quickly tells them that his town has been taken over by a demon. So, with no one else there who can react, Lilia hands her daughter over to her mother, and Team Genius heads out to Mudkin Glade to hopefully save the people there. When they get there, they see the town is very orderly, running as it normally should, but people seem to be a bit afraid. An old man approaches them and starts talking to them. He's telling them how some kids have been kidnapped, and he thinks that it's the work of some hags who have been around the area for many years, because this has happened before. Now, something about his speech seems very off to the party. As he leads them into the woods, they all draw weapons on him, and in a long, drawling voice, he turns into a bearded devil and tells them to ease up on it before they do something stupid. This devil tells them he's only been in town for a week, but these disappearances happened well before he came. All he wants to do is to bring some bureaucracy to this small village. I can't think of anything more evil, neither could he. So, he tells them that all that they really need to do to save this town is to get rid of the hags. So, reluctantly, they go off to fight the hags, leaving a devil in charge of the town. They finally find the hags' hideout, and when they get inside, they're confronted by 3 women. Now, in our world, we may know them as the Sanderson sisters. In their world, they're the Sanderson Coven. They're pretty much the same exact thing. So, the party decides to try and negotiate with them. Hopefully, talk them out of all this and just return the girls and leave the area and they won't have to kill them. However, one of them, Mary, smells children. Sarah decides to go up around sniffing each of them, sniffs Lilia, and goes, "She's got a child, and a very magic one." That sets Lilia off. Lilia, Zilver, Adria, and Al go berserk. They quickly kill Sarah, and seeing how she's about to lose, Winifred tells Mary to grab the children and join her back in the Feywild. She disappears, teleported to the Feywild, and Mary runs upstairs to grab the children. All the characters run up after her, and she decides to cast Sleep to try and hopefully put the characters to sleep, giving her enough time to grab the children and get out of there. I wasn't paying attention to health totals. She rolled 21. I also wasn't paying attention to the fact that half the party are elves and kind of immune to that kind of stuff. So, Lilia had 21 hit points, what I rolled. Yeah, Mary only had 20. She put herself to sleep. Was killed. The 2 children were then returned to Mudkin Glade, and now the players are about to go into the Feywilds to hunt down Winifred. Because while they could just leave her alone, they've got the leg of a Fey creature, which they can make the flute out of now from the bone. But Lilia brought up the point that she knows about Ianthe, her daughter. If she lets Winifred go, she's just going to come back after her daughter. So they're going to go into the Feywilds to prevent a future where her daughter is taken by a hag. That's been a very brief and a little jumbled in places overview of what's happened so far. If I've missed anything, hopefully one of you viewers will remember it. But hopefully you enjoy the rest of the ride. Thank you. I'll see you Sunday.